Women Matters meet for the last time in February. I hope not the last time forever. It's not, but in February, because February is almost over. February 2025. It's incredible how the year flies, and in all continents, it seems to be. Now we have South Africa, Africa, Europe, and America here. And it seems to be the same thing everywhere, only that the seasons are different. We are still in winter, going into spring, while Hanneli is still in summer. And says that the time is shifting. You see it at night, that it's a little bit cooler at her end. Do you want to start, Hanneli? Not necessarily the weather report, but
Yeah, no, I was just sharing that we can see the sun is coming up later, so there's definitely a shift happening. And we've had very, very hot days and strong winds, and at night more chilly sometimes. I'm Hanneli, I'm here in Cape Town, South Africa. I actually spoke to Gertrude. We had a lovely conversation, long conversation with Gertrude on Saturday. It was really lovely to connect like that with her. She also always busy, as you know. I don't think she might be able to join us today. She said she has something that starts in between, so she can't join us. But it was wonderful to have just a casual chat with her outside of the group as well. And yes, and then after that, I also watched an amazing series about the unreal wonders of the world, nature in the world. It's just beautiful. So Heidi, I was thinking a lot of you because they showed so much of parts of Russia that one hardly ever see elsewhere. And it's so beautiful. It's such untouched nature. It's just gorgeous, beautiful. So that also made me think of why is it that we focus always on what's wrong in the world and we don't really appreciate all these wonders that we have around us. And we don't have to pay for them. They don't cost us anything. And just to get, yeah, it takes us into another state of mind as well. And I just had a session with a friend of mine in the US that I haven't spoken to for a while. It was also good to just be present to her experience of what's currently happening there as well, and to just hear about her experience. So here I am, and I'm passing to you, Monia.
Thank you. It's still chilly in Austria, so I'm still wearing warm clothes. We had a birthday party yesterday for my older daughter, who is now 55, 54. And my youngest grandchild, who is 22. And we had it at our house, and it was just, yeah, it was very nice. And we were 8 people because most of them have the flu. So the flu is going around in Austria like crazy, but it's not an epidemic. It's just that almost every second person is sick. And we still don't have a government. And they now have resumed negotiations as they did, I don't know how, 2 months ago. Slightly different background people, but the same people in the front, and I don't know how they will manage. And people are getting fed up in Austria because they were elected to govern and not just to negotiate and want more and more and more ministries. And so we are really in a not very good mood in all. Yeah. So I have resorted to fantasy literature again, just to escape the misery. All right. Otherwise, yeah, I guess I'm fine. And I'm passing on to Christine.
What would we do without books to distract us and entertain us, right? I'm a big fan of Louise Penny, who is a Canadian author, and she's got a series. I think this is her 19th or 20th book. They're light mysteries. They're always the same characters. She's a wonderful author. If I recommend her highly. So I've got her latest book, and it's just the kind of thing I can't, I love her writing. I can't put it down. So it is a great distraction. And as I said, I'm helping Tom recover, also working, um, trying to stay active with friends and catch up with people and keeping tabs with my siblings. Just seems like there's never enough time to get it all done. The days do go by really quickly. Um, this is the time of year. No, you guys probably don't watch college basketball, but this is the time of year when it gets exciting. And my my college team is right up there at the top in the country. So I'm so excited to see what happens as tournaments start. Um, so that's fun. Again, another good distraction. And I won't talk about politics because it gets me very upset and angry, and I can't do it. So I'm gonna jump over, leapfrog over that one. And I will pass on to Victoria.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for my disruptive behavior. I was trying to make it as little disruptive as possible. I'm decided early this morning to go up to Los Angeles, and so I've got like a zillion things to do, but I didn't want to miss all of you. And good news. I mean, I'm glad to hear that Tom is coming out of this ordeal. Christine, first of all. Glad to hear it. And actually, if there weren't a topic, well, I'm still not sure what the topic is, but the times they are changing. Is that the topic? But I've been thinking a lot about Pope Francis, and I see him as the like in Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, "You're our only hope" is the line from Star Wars. And that's how I feel about Pope Francis. I'm not, as you know, I'm not like a bona fide Catholic, although I do go to daily mass, but I'll never join the church or any church for that matter. But I feel like the world really needs him right now as a counterbalance to the evil empire, to use the Star Wars imagery. And I've been really shocked the last couple of days that every mass I've been to, they have forgotten to put him on they read these prepared prayers every day in mass that are always good. They cover what's going on in the world, but if there's something really current, then the priest has to actually remember. And in the last couple of days, I've actually like yelled out very, very disruptively during the prayer time, about Pope Francis. So that's been kind of discouraging for me, that the idea that, I mean, that should be foremost. And as I said, I'm not even Catholic. So like, what's going on with people are kind of seem to be like in a daze or something. Anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about the power of prayer, and I was praying for Tom. So that but anyway, we don't have to talk about that, but that's sort of what's been on my mind the last few days. Yeah, that's probably my check-in. It's the weather. If we're doing weather reports, the weather's really beautiful. As you can see, I've been fighting to get the sun out of my eyes. And that's why I decided it was a good day to go. There's a big opening tonight at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, and I'm on their official press list. And it's an exhibition that's organized by the Musée d'Orsay in Paris and the Getty and the Art Institute of Chicago. So it's a really big, major. It's a exhibition of Gustave Caillebotte, the Impressionist artist, who he was kind of ignored. He's considered second rung, but I always thought he was fabulous. And so I'm really glad they're doing a huge exhibition. And of course, to be totally like politically au courant, the curators, I'm curious to see the show because I know his work. I've seen a lot of it in Paris, but they're focusing on the male body. So because that's has never been really looked at. It's with Impressionism, it's either landscapes or you know, whatever, downtown Paris or women. And so I'm really intrigued to see what the show is going to be because there are over 100 works. So it's significant. So it'll be interesting. Anyway, so if I'm kind of like revved up because as Christine knows only too well, that it's going to Los Angeles is like going to the moon. I mean, it's no matter what time of day you go, it's a big traffic and but the weather's good. So I will pass on to you, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. I heard that Pope Francis is quite ill. He is in the Gemelli Hospital in Rome.
Oh yeah,
So
you're near him. Well, pray,
I
go
know
visit him.
no, I don't go to visit them. Nobody, I think, is allowed to do that. I'm not really inclined to do that, but I heard the news, and you know, he would be needed probably, and a person very ill in the hospital is not really very powerful to do anything, I think, you know. So anyway,
Well, that's why I'm praying for his recovery.
yeah. As for my check-in, yeah, I'm fine. I only am astonished how time passes, how many crazy things appear in the world, coming and going, one over the other, that the most crazy thing of the day before yesterday, you have already forgotten because the next one is coming. So I'm sitting and wondering, shaking the head, you know, I would need a machine to do that all the time. But I refuse to be too much bothered by all that, and I have chosen to sit back and watch it and see how it will work out. We in Germany had elections yesterday, and we will have a similar situation as in Austria, I guess. So what is. So yeah, as a topic for today, I don't really know what to say. We could also talk about the necessity of having somebody who is holding up peace, like the Pope is supposed to do, or the Dalai Lama. Do we need the figures, and what can they do? That would be interesting to me to ask these questions. Are they really able to do anything? Or how is peace happening? Doesn't it need to happen inside of ourselves first before we ask that the whole world makes peace by still beating up each other, as it is the habit lately? I don't know. That could be a topic we could talk about. If not, I'm open to everything else.
Well, I'd like to just, I think that's a very important subject that you just brought up, Heidi, because I think it's actually, it's sort of like for me, like the topic of prayer, that whom does the prayer help? I mean, if you believe in God, then God is omnipotent and God does whatever God wants to do and is not necessarily going to be, you know, like writing down how many people have voted for have prayed for a particular outcome. But it feels so wholesome and nourishing. I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience to pray, like I prayed for Tom, and now I'm praying for the Pope. I mean, I pray for lots of people and lots of things all the time. But that sense of that it just feels wholesome, like I'm in my Buddhist sanghas, I've had a big Buddhist binge this past week that just happened because my two main teachers both started classes, and there was an all weekend retreat online of one of them. And they had a celebration of 40 years since their center started yesterday afternoon. So it's been like this kind of just happened that way because of the schedule. And that sense that's on Zoom, and you're all on Zoom, and I've never met any of you in the flesh. And yet I feel like there's a real bond of love that holds us together and care and compassion, that we really are a family, even if, you know, some of you have met in person, but I haven't met any of you yet. And it's the same with my Buddhist group. They're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So who knows if I'll meet them or not. And yet there's this, especially with this weekend retreat that we had, there was this, for me, a palpable sense of community and what Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. So I feel like that is an important topic in the sense of, yeah, the Pope has been railing against all the world's ills since he became the Pope. Well, long before he became the Pope, when he was Cardinal of Buenos Aires. I saw an amazing interview with him where he really called out the whole world for what he calls the new religion of narcissism and consumerism and things like that. So I feel like it's like they'd say about John the Baptist, you know, the voice crying in the wilderness, that yes, the Pope can't do anything, and yet I feel it's so critical to have a voice out there that people actually listen to, which because of his position, people listen to him whether they like it or not. He's there. No one's going to listen to me or any of us on that level of the whole globe. And it pulls together a kind of an atmosphere where there is still good. Evil will not prevail. Good will still triumph in the end. And so I think it's essential that there be voices like that, even if they seem impotent in the sense of like, you know, they're not going to influence, maybe they won't influence world politics at all. So far, that's been the case. And yet, maybe those of us who are, it does begin in the heart. Anyway, I'm talking way too much. I guess it's the coffee. I'll be quiet now. But
Christine, you have raised a hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to check in for Lorraine. She may be visiting a home that she put a bid on. So she's in the process of buying a home, a condo. And so I know she's been going through a lot, having inspections and negotiations and stuff like that. So that's a positive thing. Hopefully, you know, in another week or two, she'll have gone through that purchasing process. Yeah.
Good. Good.
And as you were talking, Victoria, I was reminded of the book that I'm reading. It's called The Gray Wolf. And there's this kind of metaphor. I don't know if it's a metaphor, what the similar, I don't know what the word is, but this is First Peoples traditions in Canada. So the First Peoples have this story of two wolves, and you greet one gray wolf, and the gray wolf is the one who is strong and compassionate and wise and patient and caring. And then the other wolf is a black wolf, and that wolf is vengeful, spiteful, impulsive. And the story was which wolf will survive, which one is going to make it. And the answer is it depends which one you feed. So I really like that. It gave me a reason to think that through and remember we need to feed all that positivity, whether it's through our communities, our prayers, whatever it is. And I think the Pope, for me, just reminds me of our higher selves. You know, he's just a good example of trying to reach for our higher selves and not get lost in all the base instincts of human beings. So that's why his voice to me is important. It's a reminder, and it breaks through all the other crap. Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering about praying. I guess it does something for you. But I wonder, and I'm sure I'm remembering Ken Wilber correctly, that we have to be aware of magical thinking, that we want to change something by praying, that we want to have influence by praying on what is. And to me, the Pope, he's an old man, he's 88, I believe. He has been sick for a long time. And I wonder why people refuse to let him go, because there will be another Pope. And I am not very impressed by by the institution of the Catholic Church, because if they really treat women as secondary and not being able to be in contact with God or whatever they call the higher being. So I really haven't been brought up in a Catholic faith. I sort of emancipated from depending on Catholic rules, and I don't know how to formulate it. Praying. To me, praying is just being there with all your essence. And I don't use words in praying, like people pray that the weather will be fine next weekend because they have a party and things like that. But to send good thoughts, and even if they are, with regard to the Pope, that he can let go more easily. And yeah, I wouldn't pray for him to prolong his suffering, which is actually what people do by wanting him to go on and on, because being in the hospital, he isn't influential anymore. And as far as I know, as far as I believe, right now you need a strong Pope to counter what is going on in the world. Anyway, so I have mixed feelings about praying, Victoria, as you probably noticed, but I may be wrong. It's just my personal opinion. Yeah, that's about all. But I think it's an interesting topic because I read about people who refuse that when they're in the hospital, that people pray for them, because that's a bad sign if people have to pray for them. And so this is rather funny. But other people, of course, are very appreciative of being prayed for. But what is it, praying? You send positive vibrations in a certain direction. Maybe, I don't know. It's Victoria, what is praying? What is your mental state when you pray?
Well, I have a billion things to say, but I'm conscious of the fact that Hanali and Heidi need to speak, and then I could talk for days. So I'll speak shortly, but I want to be deferential to Hanali and Heidi, unless you two don't want to say anything, but I'm sure you do.
You are waiting. Okay.
No,
You have to
Victoria,
wait, Anya.
Victoria, you're most welcome to go ahead. I'll drop in.
No, I
What
would
do you
like
say,
to say something to this, because we know about what Ken Wilber said, the three faces of God. And there are surely three different ways of praying. One is to pray to God, no? When to you, I speak with you. And one is to find God in yourself. That would be the meditations, no? And what was the third one? To talk about the things, you know? So I think praying can be understood in many different ways, and it's not necessarily magic, a magic belief. Yeah, if you think I pray for tomorrow, that's good weather. I mean, yeah, okay, that's is this a prayer? That is more when I say, oh, I would like to have a parking spot. Universe, please give me a parking spot. I wouldn't call that a prayer. Okay, either Hanneli or Victoria.
Why do you make me smile with that one? Yeah, for me personally, I don't have any connotation to it because I think it's a very deeply personal thing for people, how they feel about that. I personally have, maybe it's just because of my background and my my rebelling against dogma of the church and things like that, that for me, it's like you said, Heidi, there are many different ways of people experiencing it. And they will most probably tell us all the different kind of experience that they experience when they do that and why they do that. But just from a general point of view is the one that for me is the most important of the three that you're speaking about is the one in yourself, to connect with the divine within yourself and not to transfer it outwards that expectation somebody else must sort out the problems. So if you look at the problems in the world right now, so if we pray for, in your case now, Victoria, you said Pope Francis, is that, so we as human beings and other human beings, 8 billion of us don't have to do anything. This poor man must hold us all together, or the Dalai Lama, or whoever. It just doesn't make sense for me because we are 8 billion of us on the planet and each responsible for our own well-being and then obviously then of others as well, because we are all interconnected. So in that sense, for me, that I don't resonate with something like that, to expect one, even if it's a powerful person, to fix the problems of the world or to influence it on any level. But I do feel there are lots of people in the world right now who are putting in that positive energy, that putting out that positive thoughts. Just to give you a short, to share shortly what my friend and I discussed was exactly this polarization in the US. And I don't want to go into politics, but she said she doesn't want to choose between these two things. She rather would send just love to everybody. And she says she's been frowned upon when she does that. But that's her way to share, to remind people that's close to her and around her that we can choose love. We don't have to go into the fighting and the polarization, whatever else is going on, or give it more energy rather than sending love to it, and herself making sure that she herself is in a state of love, that she doesn't go into judgment and fear and the likes. So just to share that with you as well.
Yeah, that's in terms of praying for the Pope, it's I guess what I'm feeling in my heart is just this sense of it's not magical thinking. Yeah, that I think that's been since time immemorial the sort of the pitfall of prayer as it's perceived. This idea, it is magical thinking that somehow I mean, I had so many cases of little tiny silly prayers, especially when I lived in Vienna for some reason. I guess it was because Beatrice was a baby, so there was a lot, I don't know, life was very turbulent. And things I remember once, she lost one of her mittens, and we went to some opening at some museum or gallery or something, and it was snowing very hard, and I suddenly noticed that one of her mittens was gone. She had one hand and the other was bare. And I prayed to find the other mitten. And, and then miraculously, it was at some point we retraced our steps and there it was in the midst, but it's this kind of thing where I remember many times in my life where it's been something very trivial and something small, but there's something, I don't know why, there's something kind of, but that feels more like a game almost. And the thrill of the answered prayer, as it were. But I think I know I mean, that my Buddhist studies have really amplified the way I've anyway looked at prayer. I think prayer in a traditional Christian context can be fraught with a lot of sort of magical thinking. In the Buddhist context, because there is no such thing as prayer in that sense, because Buddhism is, well, except for Tibetan Buddhism, but like the Buddhism that I've been mostly studying, Vipassana, there is no God. It's not theistic at all. And so the practice of there are these 4 heavenly abodes, they're called, which are loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, or sympathetic joy, depending on how you translate it. That's like the joy in someone else's happiness, that you're happy that someone else is happy. And then equanimity, they're called the 4 heavenly abodes. And so Buddhists practice with certain phrases, and it's simply that sense of wanting the good. There's no outcome that's expected, or even it's not prayer in that sense. And I feel like that's actually the way, I do believe in God, and I do believe in an omnipotent God. And yet, like Job says in the book of Job, he says, even if you slay me, I'm going to trust in you. And that's the way I feel about God. Like if God strikes me dead right this minute, I'm okay with it. Actually, it would be nice, but that's another subject. But this sense of being held, and I don't know all the answers, and I don't know what's going to happen with the world, and I have no power. What I can do is try to embody the good, the positive, the wholesome. And I think that's what you're saying, Hanali. What all of you are saying. This sense that since I'm here in this world, and this is what I came to after my husband died, because I just wanted to die. I was very angry at God. I hated God for a really long time. I never lost my faith because it's so core to who I am. And I don't know why that is either. I wasn't raised in any church. Oh, that's something I wanted to ask, actually, just out of curiosity. Did all of you have an upbringing in the church, in some church? Or and I know, yeah. And so Heidi also?
It depends what you mean by it. My parents certainly were in the Protestant church, and I had to go to the confirmation class, but after that I sort of never went again.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. I meant be like from your parents, yeah.
Yeah, but it was not really very strong. It was not, I don't feel it like having been indoctrinated by any church things. Not really. I had to go there, but that's what you do, but not, I wasn't pushed into any believing stuff. No.
Right. No, I was just curious about the background, because like my friend Alfred, who's Jewish by heritage, was raised as literally a tabula rasa. Like he didn't know anything about anything. When I met him, I had to teach him about his own tradition. I teach him about Moses and all this stuff. So he was literally a blank slate. Like, and his family celebrated Christmas. It was everything was totally secular. Like they had the Christmas tree, but they were, by blood they were Jewish, but he had no knowledge of anything, of any religion. So that's what I mean in terms of not indoctrination, but just that. Because Hanali, you said you were, you rebelled against. So it's that sense of like, there's something, like all the things. I mean, our parents raise us with certain ideas or certain values. And then there's do we rebel against them, or do we adhere to them, or do we simply just let them drift away and we just do our own thing? That's part of the sort of our formation. That I was just curious because,
yeah, let us talk about that. Yeah.
I was, before I started school, I was Christian. So I remember the water running down because I was already 5 years old. And my grandmother went with me because my father considered it was more convenient for me to have a religion, because he was Protestant, but he didn't adhere to any faith, and they married as Catholics. But I wasn't Christian until before I went to school, so it was just more convenient for a child to adhere to a certain religion. And I stayed with it until about 15. And then I had a very weird experience during a confession, because the priest knew much more about sins than I did, because I had no idea what he was really asking me about. And I decided that's not for me anymore. So, and my mother, I went also to the Marianische Jungschar, Marianische Youth group, where we had a light blue scarf around and a very wonderful way to tie it. And she sent me to summer camp, and the nun let me scrub all the toilets. And I just scrubbed them. Okay, if the toilet is scrubbing, I scrub it. And then she told my mother, well, she isn't as proud as she seems to be. And then my mother decided to take me out right away. So so it's not the faith, it's the institution and the people who carry the institution, which is just, miserable most of the time. And that's a shame, because it could be much different. It could be really a community of people, and that's the way it is. And Buddhist faith is something I have been practicing for a couple of decades now, but it's not a religion to me. It's just really practical, applied living. And that's the way it is for me. Okay.
It's interesting you bring up the cleaning of the toilets, because yesterday afternoon was the celebration of the 40th anniversary of this this Buddhist meditation center in Cambridge, which, as I said, I've never seen, and who knows if I ever will. So they were inviting, it was hybrid. There were people online and people in the space, and they were inviting people at one point who were members or volunteers of the center to share if they wanted to. And this one woman, so people were saying, yes, I joined such and such a year and da, da, da. And then this one woman raised her hand, and she said, I'm a volunteer at the center. And she said, she said, I clean the toilets, all the toilets, and I scrub all the floors. And it was so funny because she said it, I guess if one were cynical, one could think she almost said it with pride, because I saw one of the teachers, as this woman said this, kind of almost, well, maybe I was imagining it, but almost looked to me like she kind of recoiled, like, oh, why would you bring the toilets into this space? But it's funny that you said that, Monia, because I thought at that moment, this could go both ways. It could be her pride in how humble she is, like she's proud to be humble, that she tells this large, august assembly of people, yes, I know that lots of you, she didn't say this, but the implication, like, I know that lots of you are very wealthy and you have endowed this center so it can continue in perpetuity. And I can't do that, but I mean, I'm making this all up, but I clean the toilets. Like, would you do that? That's what I was just thinking in the back of my mind. I thought it could, because I just did another Buddhist class on the idea of generosity. What is generosity? Which could be another topic. It's really, because that's so tangled. Like, are you generous because you have an expectation of what the recipient of your generosity is going to express or feel, or are you going to get something back? I mean, so all these things are very tangled, but Anyway, that's another subject. But it
Yeah.
just made me laugh because I just heard about this toilet thing yesterday and I was kind of reflecting on it.
I wrote that down because that would be a wonderful topic. What is
That's
generosity?
what I wanted to say too. That would
I
be a
wrote that
good
down.
topic.
It's a great topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Monia is
Also, the
understanding it.
topic could also be what does it mean to be humble?
Mhm.
Uh, and what does it mean to surrender, as it is always demanded in certain songs and in certain religions, surrender. So we could talk about a lot of
Yeah. What I would like to
possibilities.
say, still, we have about 15 minutes. I haven't heard a lot of Hannele and of Christine. I would give you a little bit more space and explore what you want to contribute.
I'll mute myself. So
And Heidi, you too. I haven't heard you about praying.
You go first, Hannele.
Okay, what came up, what I wanted to ask as well, and it's maybe related to what you just said, Victoria, and you, Monia, as well, is about the indoctrination. And a friend of mine calls it contamination. You've been contaminated. And that reminded me of a question of, when you speak about Christianing, for example, like Monia, when you were 5, when the oaths and promises are made on behalf of you and you had no say in it. For me, that is something that, and my own story with religion is quite interesting because my ex-husband, when I married him, he was not was not a minister, a priest. He was not a priest. And then while we were married, he became a priest. I even paid for his studies. Crazy. But he said he would never go and, he would never do it. But that's regardless now of what happened. But there I discovered a lot about during his studies, because I helped him a lot sometimes when he was studying Greek and Hebrew and all sorts of things. And there was lots of missing links that I discovered while just being present to what he was studying, which made me question lots and lots of things. So that's why I said I'm against the dogma. Like you said, Monia, the faith, it's not about the faith in the divine or the sacred. It's about the dogma and all these rules and these things, and taking parts out of the Bible. Men decided that, to take parts out. And I even questioned my ex-husband on how can you then stand for something when you know it's not the whole thing anyway, for example. So where I come from is like the dogma, all these rules, and it's a human being deciding these things. It's not the sacred. For me, a sacred is a very personal, deep experience. But whatever we call it, the universe, the divine, the sacred, God, doesn't matter. It's feeling the sacredness, and then when we come together with others, like we are here now, sensing and feeling the sacred in each other, and being aware of that it's alive in all of us, and it's our embodiment of it. That's more important than anything else, all these rules and stuff. Then just to give you some perspective of how I come over where I said I'm a rebel.
I like that it's almost like this is our prayer group. Us meeting together and combining our spirits, right? It doesn't have to be informed by special rules or beliefs. It's really just finding each other and connecting with each other. So, yeah, I don't practice religion at this point, but I'm always trying to look for better ways to experience spirituality and the divine without getting caught in religious dogma. And it's hard, it's challenging. And I was fortunate that the Lutheran faith that I was brought up in was really progressive and welcoming of all people, of all women, everything. So there wasn't a lot of exclusionary beliefs, but still, it still is. I've always been that person who was like, no, you're not going to tell me what to think or what to believe. Thank you. But I don't want, just because you say it, I'm not going to buy it. So I've always been that kind of person. And yeah, for better or for worse. So I'm always trying to find my own way of making sense of it. And I have a funny story. Our younger daughter, older daughter got confirmed, and younger daughter went through the whole confirmation classes, which is 2 years, weekly for 2 years. And when it came to getting confirmed, she said, no, not going to do it. And we didn't know that she was thinking about this, but she very strongly said, you know, I can't stand up in front of people and recite the Apostles' Creed when I don't believe what I would be saying. So I'm not going to do that. And I was a little horrified. But my husband was like, yeah, good for you. So we actually talked to the pastor of the church, who's a woman, and she was okay with it. She said, you know, she asked good questions in class. She's, you know, she's thinking. It's not just a knee-jerk reaction. She's thinking about this. And it's okay if at this point in time she cannot, you know, profess that as her beliefs. So it was just an interesting exercise for all of us to say, you know, how much can we recite things because we're supposed to? How much do we really believe? And my daughter, I know part of what she was battling was just the black and whiteness of religious dogma. Like the world, she goes, well, the world, what we know the world wasn't made in 7 days. Yes, Alexis, we know the world wasn't made in 7 days. You don't have to take it literally. But she wasn't at a place at age 13 where she was going to recognize the spirit behind it all and not drill down into the literal interpretation of things. That comes with time and a lifetime, really, of trying to separate that out. So I feel like I'm always in that mindset of trying to distinguish what are my values. I'm really grateful for the values that I developed by going to church as a young person. But now that I'm an adult and I can see things a little differently, I'm also wary of people telling me, this is what you need to believe, and you need to believe it this way. So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. If you want to hear my story, I went to the children's Sunday school in this church, and there we had stories and little pictures, and we put them in books and so. And I had the impression that religion is just a story. You know, they have this story, that story, and I was really never much interested. I went there, yeah, but not in the Bible, to read the Bible, no. So we had, I think, only 1 year of confirmation class, and I didn't like the priest at all. And so it was a convenience. When you had the confirmation, then you get good gifts. I got my first tape recorder, and that was the beginning of the musical development, because then I could hear the pieces all the time. I studied for the first time. I was so in love with Elia from Mendelssohn. And I heard it so often, and I sang it in the choir. And that was for me, if I see it from now, that is church for me, to sing, to do music in the church. But all this other stuff, what they tell you, what you need to do or not to do. And I'm illiterate about the Bible. I just don't know anything. I mean, sometimes I read a little bit, but I don't know. I was reconciled with Christianity by Jordan Peterson. I think I told you this. When he did the biblical lectures, I learned something about the Bible, and I liked that a lot. But you know, then I did the choir master in the church, and I went there only for that. And I didn't like the hierarchies, you know. You had to do what, you know. they were friendly, but it was very clear that you have nothing to say in this in this place. And so, yeah, I did my job, and I hoped I would get some recognition. No. And after almost 20 years, I said goodbye for this miserable, really miserable recompensation of very, very, very little money, which was little more than the gasoline which I needed to go there. So I thought, why do I do that? And that certainly didn't help with getting reconciled with church. But at the same time, this spiritual path started when I had a friend. She was very much in esoteric, and she how do you say, ignited me. No, she invited me, she initiated me in thinking about these things. Unfortunately, she is dead for a long time, but that was the beginning. And then you look here, you look there, meet these people, meet these, and it was always a research, and it still is. And I'm very confident that there is something which is bigger than me. I have no idea what it is, who, when you can say, if you can say who. I don't think you can say who. Well, maybe, I don't know. And I don't even want to clarify that, because for me, this is the real mystery, the not knowing what this is all about. And at the same time, I try to do what I think is good for me and for the world. And sometimes I discover that I didn't do very much good to me in the past. And so I try to make it better, and to get rid of all these conditionings which we had for so long a time. You have to obey, you have to do what the other people tell you to do, and blah, 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 blah. So I'm sort of a, I don't want to say silent rebel, but not a loud one. But I don't accept everything which people are telling me, especially when they are authorities. Then I say, oh, at the same time being still fearful of authority, because I have learned that you have to, policemen, you know. So that's what I try to reconcile, to be courageous and not hide when the moment is coming. And as far as prayer for me is, listening to music is for me a way of prayer, and feeling it in my body. And prayer for other people, yeah, thinking about them, wishing them well, all the best things, you know, that, yes. But I wouldn't say, oh, very rarely, dear God, please make that things X, Y, Z is happening. It feels difficult. So far to my story. Up to you for let's say a final remark.
I'll do a checkout. Yeah, I'll be thinking about the spirituality woven into music, because it is very evocative, and connecting. It's unifying. People may have slightly different feelings, but there's a sense that music is very unifying, and I think lifts us up to a different realm a lot of the time. So it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm complete. Pass it on.
Thank you, Christine. I also, music, dancing, sound. But music brings people together. It's across everything. It's just a unifying force. And sound is a high vibration. But for me, dancing also, I can just, being in nature, there are so many ways to experience it, but yes, to feel it. Just watching that series this weekend about the unreal wonders of the world is just by itself. It's awe, it's absolute awe and wonder of that creation. So thank you. I really enjoyed this as well. Thank you. Pastor Moni.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of my calendars, and it has a beautiful bloom already. So whatever there is in nature it's just a prayer as well. So watching the magnolias now open, it's just, yeah, or watching the birds when I put out to feed them, how they act and how they fly and and the squirrels, how they jump. So actually everything is a kind of prayer just by being, to me. That's my checkup. I pass on. Victoria?
Yeah, everything that everyone said really resonates with me. And apropos of music, Saint Augustine famously said, whoever sings prays twice. So it's very much, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. And so it's amazing how music is really vanishing from a lot of the institutional church contexts. People can't seem to sing anymore because they never have sung. And so it's a real epidemic, and I see it as running parallel to this kind of encroaching materialism, I guess. Well, I just finished my Kandinsky lecture series, so he's always talking about materialism and spirituality. So I totally agree that I've always felt that since I was a small child, that that's the true, and nature and music are the cathedrals or whatever, the spiritual realms that we inhabit. So I totally agree about that. And apropos of Elijah, it's called in English, of course, the local university, it's a university and community choir, chorus is performing that in the spring. And thank you for reminding me, Heidi, because I saw the conductor a few months ago at a concert, and I said, oh, I really need to sing that because I've sung it and played it both. I've done both many times, and it's so beautiful and fabulous. Yeah, I encourage all of you to listen to it if you get a chance. It's just fabulous. Really great composing. And Mendelssohn, interesting enough, was the grandson of a rabbi, but he was Christian. So to me, his whole approach to the story of Elijah is so perfect because he has that Jewish heritage and that Old Testament reverence for Elijah, and at the same time, this way of like bringing it forward into Christianity. Anyway, here I go lecturing again. So that's my extended checkout. But thank you, everybody. I love this topic and all the related topics. So I look forward to continuing. Thank you. Over to you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Over and out.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to remind everybody that singing is the most natural way of praying. I mean, the most natural way of expressing. An instrument is much more difficult, but singing, everybody can sing, even if many people say they can't, but they can. I know that. And if they say they can't, that's because somebody has told them they can't, and then they didn't practice it. And then when they open the mouth, they certainly can't. But I am really, I did in my life lessons with people who said they couldn't sing, and at the end they could sing. And the spiritual quality of the voices. I mean, the mantras in Buddhist and wherever is sung, even African and other religions. It's all about singing and about rhythm and singing and rhythm. No, you can clap with the hands. That's the most natural way of expressing oneself and also one's faith, one's inner life. And I don't know if you ever experienced toning, singing together sounds, how much this brings you in a sacred realm. And if it was possible on Zoom, I would do it every time. But unfortunately, when we do it, it sounds like we call in German Katzenmusik, music of cats, like all distorted. So I'm waiting for the video conferencing where we can sing together, because that would be still, that's my desire, to create spaces in which we can dip into this spiritual connection, yeah, by singing, by voice. So thank you very much and see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Have a good time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And greetings. Ciao.